Welcome to This Month on the Internet. This is going to be a recurring series that I do in order to talk about any of the stories that I either didn't have time to get to throughout the month or anything that didn't really have enough content to warrant its own video. It's also going to be the place that I'm able to follow up on previous videos. For example, today we're going to be revisiting the David Dobrik situation. So drop a like on this video because instead of researching one topic, I had to research quite a few, and your likes make me feel like my time is worth it. Hit the subscribe button to make sure you catch these every month along with my other videos, and with that out of the way, let's get started. So first up, we've got the EDP445 situation. It stands for Eat Dat Pussy 445. You might not recognize that name right away, but you've probably seen him before and not known it. The man was a living meme. He's got such classics as, is jacking off a sport?
Would you guys consider jacking off to be a sport? I don't know about you motherfuckers, but I consider that shit to be a sport, okay? If people can sit back and label goddamn golf, which is the boringest fucking sport in the world, a goddamn sport, if you can label that shit as a sport, and if you can label goddamn fishing as a sport, I know damn well you can label jacking off a sport.
That's the only joke I'm going to reference because this is actually kind of a fucked up story. So about a week ago, EDP445 was Chris Hansen by a YouTube channel by the name of Predator Poachers. I'm 95% sure I don't need to explain what I mean by Chris Hansen, but just in case, basically the Predator Poachers set up a vigilante sting operation in order to expose EDP445 as a predator. They posed as a 13-year-old girl online and spent a long time catfishing EDP to gain his trust. Then they bait him into a meetup and confront him with the fact that there is no 13-year-old girl and he's just been caught in the act. The actual chat logs are extensive. There's a 2-hour-long video where a streamer reads the entirety of the chat logs, and it is some pretty fucked up stuff. I never watched To Catch a Predator with Chris Hansen, so I don't really have any kind of reference for this stuff, but EDP has countless realizations during the conversation where he thinks about how bad what he's doing is. Unfortunately, almost every realization happened during his post-nut clarity right before he transitioned back into acting like a health teacher to this underage girl. Yeah, that's right, he was straight up jerking off in chat with what he thought was a 13-year-old girl, complete with dick pics and everything, and surprisingly a lot of pictures of his own shit. So obviously this is a good thing that EDP has been exposed for this absolutely terrible act. At the very least, we can take solace in the fact that he's now lost his platform that he uses to prey on these underage girls. The reason I say at the very least is because there's a very big difference between what Chris Hansen does and what these vigilante predator hunters are doing. See, when it came to Catch a Predator, Chris Hansen would work in tandem with the police in order to build a legal case against these pedophiles prior to confronting them. This was so that when they finally show up to the house where they think they're meeting an underage girl, the police are already there prepared to make an arrest with a mountain of damning evidence. See, the court of public opinion and real legal court are two very different things. See, we can take these chat logs and the video of him being confronted as rock solid evidence that this guy is a piece of shit who needs to be deplatformed and locked up. But when it comes to actual police investigations, things get tricky. Firstly, text messages, phone calls, video, and even DNA evidence can all be considered circumstantial evidence in an actual court of law. This poses a big problem when it comes to EDP because there's no guarantee that the chat logs can actually be authenticated or the video taken as legitimate proof that he was trying to meet up with a 13-year-old girl. On top of this, we have the issue of entrapment. This is the action of tricking someone into committing a crime in order to secure their prosecution. You can't do this as a police officer. It's illegal. There needs to be proof that the accused intended to commit the crime on their own volition. In the case of EDP, the Predator Poachers reached out to him to engage conversation and eventually set up the meeting. This is very, very bad because potentially none of the work that they've done in order to expose EDP can be used in a court of law because it's clearly entrapment. This is why Chris Hansen would work with the police. When posing as a victim, they would hang around in chat rooms and forums in order to try and bait the predator to engaging them first, thus proving they had intent to commit the crime on their own volition. You might be thinking, who cares? There's tons of chat logs and he clearly admits to what he's doing in the video. Doesn't matter. Everything here is circumstantial or could be defended against as entrapment. And finally, the cherry on top of this story is that one of the guys who actually set up this sting operation doesn't exactly have his hands clean himself. Countless videos have surfaced showing this guy to be a level 10 racist and potentially even a predator himself. You would think that if you wanted to go after someone in a legal fashion like this, that you'd want your own background to be squeaky clean, right? This just brings into question the motives of this guy because now it could be argued that this is all just a setup because he's a racist and EDP is black. So yeah, EDP445 is most definitely a pedophile. I don't think anyone is arguing that, but unfortunately from a legal standpoint, it's highly likely he walks away from this unscathed. Next, we've got a follow-up to a video I made a few weeks ago covering the bulk of the David Dobrik situation. Quickly recapping, David was accused of being a cult-like leader of his vlog squad. Then it came out that a member of the vlog squad was sexually assaulted during a video he made back in 2017. Following this, Insider dropped an article detailing the story of a girl who was allegedly raped during a vlog in 2018 by fellow vlog squad member Durte Dom. David released 2 responses to this situation. One was received absolutely horrendously, the other actually pretty well. But regardless, he lost all his sponsors, his brand deals, his soccer team, his social media company, and eventually YouTube demonetized all of his channels. This is where it ended for the most part, with people more or less accepting David's apology and refocusing on the allegations towards Durte Dom. So following up to this story, on the weekend of the 17th, Durte Dom finally responded to the situation with a text post on his Instagram story. I'll cut to the chase. It's terrible. He claims to sincerely apologize to the victim, then he immediately follows it up by discrediting the victim's story and claiming that everything that happened that night was consensual. Then he tries to flip the script and says that his character is being unfairly attacked and it's ruining his reputation. And let's not forget the pandering at the end where he says he recently donated his time and money to women's rights groups. Pretty terrible all around, but I don't think I'm alone in saying that this just sounds like he's going, "I'm sorry you think I did this? Must suck. But stop saying I did because it's hurting my feelings." So that's about all we got from the Durte Dom side of things, which is kind of sad because he's the actual rapist and I feel like David took the brunt of all the hate. But it's not quite over for David either. In a separate but also related story, Jeff Wittek, the guy who was accused of buying the alcohol during the alleged rape vlog, came out with a video explaining how he broke his face. The reason why this is related is that the timeline of when this happened kind of gives some background as to why his response video and subsequent live stream were so poorly put together. While obviously no one knows for certain, it's speculated that he was still dealing with head trauma or potentially wasn't exactly clear in the head due to pain meds, resulting in what we got where he contradicted himself and continuously backpedaled on his own arguments. Anyway, the video in question is a 2-part documentary Jeff uploaded to his channel called Don't Try This at Home. The first part is entirely just a backstory of his life before he came to LA. The second part talks about how the 2020 pandemic affected the vlog squad's filming and how David intended for a stunt video to be the group's big return to YouTube. There's a long section where a couple members are training to get their skydiving licenses, Jeff Wittek being one of them, but the video finishes with a situation where they were using an excavator in order to do water sports. Eventually they move on from water sports to straight up dangling people from a rope and swinging them around in circles. Karina Kopf went up first and you can see her kind of freak out saying that David takes things too far. Then Jeff, having been filled with confidence from his skydiving classes, decides that he's gonna give it a shot. I can't show the footage here because YouTube has been cracking down on it, but basically you see Jeff swinging at very high speeds and then the excavator comes to a stop. His momentum carries him forward, he swings up and slams right into the excavator arm. Then he falls down into the water still attached to the rope, and that's about all we get to see. Jeff has been clear that he's not suing David over this situation, and in fact the both of them are still cool with each other. But the backlash from this has been pretty big. A lot of people have taken this as David Dobrik nearly killed his friend for a vlog. The story so far has been that David hasn't been posting on YouTube because he's respecting coronavirus rules, but a lot of people are now thinking that it was really just because he's nervous after what happened to Jeff Wittek. Personally, I don't think it's necessarily fair to frame this as David Dobrik nearly killed his friend for a vlog. Jeff admits that he consented to this, and obviously the intention wasn't for these stunts to fail. David wanted them to be successful. But obviously there is the argument that David is putting other people in seriously dangerous situations for clout. Then there's kind of the background to this where YouTube's suppressing the video. YouTube can say what they want about policies and guidelines, but all this is just coming off as YouTube trying to protect the potential return of their golden boy after all the previous drama we talked about. And that's about it for that one. The third story for today I wanted to talk about because I actually have a personal bias towards the creator that it revolves around, and honestly the whole thing seems a little ridiculous to me. So Mark Rober is an absolutely massive YouTube creator. He's an ex-NASA engineer who's helped land rovers on Mars, and now he makes YouTube videos about fun engineering and science things formatted to tell an engaging story. Anything he posts gets anywhere from 20 million to 100 million views, so it's safe to say he's one of the biggest YouTubers on the platform. This month he posted a video that's a little different from his normal fun engineering things called The Truth About My Son. In this video he speaks about how his son has autism and the struggles of autism in general before leading into a fundraiser he's doing with Jimmy Kimmel. The fundraiser is called Color the Spectrum, and the proceeds are going to an organization called Next for Autism. This sounds like a great thing at face value, and to be honest I didn't expect to see Mark Rober's face in the news over trying to help charity, but the issues arose when people started speaking out about about Next for Autism, and more specifically its ties to less reputable charities. One of which is Autism Speaks, which used to have curing autism as part of their mission statement. If you have autism or you know anyone with autism, you probably immediately understand why this is a bad thing. Autism is widely believed to be something that doesn't have a cure, or more accurately, doesn't need a cure. Further issues involved criticism around Next for Autism's use of applied behavioral analysis therapy, or ABA. This has ties to gay conversion therapies and has links to PTSD, trauma, and even suicide. Next replied to this, very clearly stating that their mission has never been to cure or prevent autism. Their focus has always been on school services. They claim that their relationships to these other companies are simply to fulfill their goal of expanding access to these services. Then finally addressing the ABA therapy accusations and claiming that today's ABA therapy has no resemblance to the methodologies used in the 60s. Mark Rober also came forward to clarify his mission for the charity with a Twitter post that shows where the money will be spent specifically. His intention is to address a services cliff that happens after an autistic person graduates from high school, specifically work, home, and social. So that's basically it. Mark came out with a fundraiser event, and unfortunately it's being received quite poorly. I definitely don't think Mark went into this with any malintent. It genuinely just seems like he's trying to do a good thing for his son and other people who might be in the same position but less fortunate than he is. The charity behind the fundraiser may not be perfect, but it doesn't seem like this terrible entity masked behind a veil of good intentions like PETA, for example. I wanted to include this story because I think it's a good cause to bring awareness to, and I think it's a little unfair the backlash that Mark Rober's been getting when he clearly just wanted to do a good thing. Again, I definitely have a Mark Rober bias because his work fascinates me, but the whole of the YouTube community seems to think that he's a good guy, and he's only ever shown himself to be one. So definitely go check out the fundraiser after the video. It's called Color the Spectrum. Assuming I get this up on Friday like I planned, the fundraiser should be happening later tonight, so definitely check it out. So the next big thing that happened this month is a much happier feel-good story. If you frequent meme pages, you've probably heard of this already. It's the Josh versus Josh versus Josh fight. Basically, about a year ago, a picture was floating around the internet of a Facebook chat group where a member by the name of Josh Swain invited all other Josh Swains and challenged them to a fight for rightful ownership of the name. It reads, "You're probably wondering why I've gathered you all here today. At precisely 4/24/2021, 12 p.m., meet at these coordinates. We fight. Whoever wins gets to keep the name. Everyone else has to change their name. You have a year to prepare. Good luck." At the time, it was just a funny meme that disappeared pretty quickly, but about a week and a half ago, it started to resurface in a different way. Without context, a ton of meme pages just started posting memes about Josh's fighting or preparing to fight. I'm not ashamed to admit that I immediately understood what they were referencing, even though it had been probably a year since I've seen the picture. The Josh fight was planned to be April 24th, and because internet memes are just one giant inside joke, no context was needed. If you knew, you knew. As we got closer to the day of the fight, many were reminded about the disappointment that was the Area 51 raid. Back in 2019, the internet planned to raid Area 51 under the idea that they can't stop all of us. Hardly anyone showed up, and it just ended up being kind of mediocre content for any YouTuber that decided to make the trip out there. So of course, we got memes like this. The Josh fight will be just as disappointing as the Area 51 raid. Those kids could read, they'd be very upset. As the day approached, a picture surfaced of a sign that someone had written on a wooden pallet at the precise location of the Josh fight. It said, "No Josh fight here, private property. Please go to Bowling Lake Park for Josh versus Josh versus Josh. May the best Josh win." So the day of the fight came around, and to the surprise of everyone, the turnout was huge. You had Big Josh, Spider Josh, Little Josh, and more. The original Josh Swain who started the chat conversation never expected anything to come of it, and when he realized people were actually going to show up, he decided to turn it into a charity drive. When the actual fight happened, everyone named Josh entered into a massive pool noodle battle to crown a victor. In the end, Little Josh had defeated all his foes, and he will go down in history as the one true Josh. In the words of his father,
he's gonna remember this for the rest of his life.
The fight happened in Lincoln, Nebraska, and if you go on Google Maps, it's actually been marked officially as a religious location. Biggest win the meme community has had probably ever, to be honest. Alright, finally we come to our last story, the Jake Paul-Ben Askren fight. If you weren't already aware of this, I'm extremely surprised because this is probably the biggest thing that happened this month, even though surprisingly it has the least amount of content to it. Basically, YouTuber Jake Paul has been hyping up a boxing match between him and former UFC fighter Ben Askren. All of the promotional material leading up to the fight was kind of pathetic. Jake Paul trying to talk a bunch of shit and rile up Ben for manufactured drama, and Ben just seemingly not giving a the fuck. I don't know if it was because he didn't care or maybe he thought he would easily win, but to be honest, I don't know what was cringier, Jake trying to manufacture drama or Ben having this nonchalant attitude about it all. To me, it kinda seems like Ben was acting this way because he severely underestimated Jake's ability. I say this because when it came to the day of the fight, Jake Paul won with a first round knockout. Up until this point, Jake fought Deji, a YouTuber who didn't train at all, in the undercard of his brother's fight with KSI. Then he fought another YouTuber, Anisan Gibb. This time they trained, but again, it wasn't much of a challenge. Finally, he took on former professional basketball player Nate Robinson for his third win. So needless to say, none of his previous competitors say much about his ability to fight, even though he got a first and then second round knockout in his most recent 2 fights. So as I said, Jake knocked out Ben Askren in the first round in what was widely received as a pathetic display of athleticism. A lot of people are arguing on whether or not Ben took a dive in this fight, and personally, I'm on the side of I don't think he did. I don't think any professional boxer wants to be knocked out. Yeah, he's getting paid either way, and yeah, he's retired, but losing to Jake Paul makes him the guy who lost to a YouTuber. I don't care who is pulling the strings behind the scenes, there's pride involved, and I honestly just think Ben underestimated Jake Paul due to his previous competitors being kinda jokes. The fight raised something like $75 million in pay-per-view purchases according to Jake, which means the only losers in this situation are anyone who paid for that to watch a real fight and not a first round knockout. And the last thing I wanted to mention today was the passing of DMX on April 9th. I wasn't sure if I wanted to add this, but he was very much a loved figure on the internet, so I felt like I needed to include it. Plus, I saw a video the other day of them carrying his casket on the back of a monster truck, which is pretty damn cool, so I thought that had to be shared. Anyway, that's about it for today. Thank you for watching. Drop a like if you enjoy the monthly recap idea, and subscribe so you don't miss future videos. I'm keeping the outro short because I see where everyone clicks off my videos, and I'm only hurting my statistics by making them longer. I'll see you all next time, and stay sexy, you heinous motherfucker.